Welcome, or welcome back. We are now at the fifth part of my full guide of I Want a Lockpick, where I will be breaking down each and every level of an area, piece by piece, to show how to solve something logically and hopefully make it so you can also do that. Now that we're going into World 5, hopefully you are caught up in some sense or another, because I do think that this is where it really starts getting complicated, just from here on out. So, just make sure that you understand all the mechanics that came before and the logic that we've used in the past for these levels, because all of it is going to continue mattering, unsurprisingly. And as per usual, there will be timestamps in the description for each level of this world, so you can just jump to wherever you need. I go through the levels piece by piece, as I said, and so you can just pause after any given step and try to work through the rest of the level yourself if you like. Spoiler warning for the following mechanics: bulk doors, master keys, blank doors, blast doors, exact keys, auras and door effects, and golden doors. If you don't understand any or all of those concepts, as always, please either play the game or refer to my previous videos on their respective worlds. And without any further ado, new mechanic time! We've got brown keys, which are demoed through forcing us into them at the start, and then we can notice that we now have a spooky aura around us, which, if you walk up to a door, it'll convert it into a brown door. And given that we only have two, we clearly will have to use them on the 2 cyan door to get up to 4, and then just move forward. And then we just need to count the locks to spin 13, which you can either watch me do or just do it yourself. Either way, another fairly simple tutorial. Similar to a level in World 1, we've got a few paths to go down fully for all the cyans. It's a fairly easy way to see where the logic goes, just by counting the keys and locks. We've got 5 white keys and 5 doors, so that's fine, we gotta open all of them normally. However, both purple and orange have only 4 keys, but 5 doors. So, you can know that that is where 2/3 of the browns are gonna go. Of course, the third one has to be spun on the blast door. The only notable step to think about other than that is the first brown key needs to be spent on the orange for white, as otherwise you won't be able to get to the other brown to actually progress. From there on though, its logic is either something you likely know or was already stated for this level, so it's nothing too bad. And of course, make sure once you get the first cyan, you open up the first 3 doors so you can take the brown key and then the rest of the cyan at the end. For this, we'll need to get through every blast door, and doing a bit of counting, we can see that the 15 orange door needs to be opened with brown. This means we'll have to take at least the 9 and 8 brown at the same time to open it, as any other combination takes too many of the brown keys at once, meaning we can't open enough blast doors in general. That will leave us with 2 more brown after opening the 15, which we could spend immediately on a single blast door, but if you notice, we could instead just spin that on the 1 locked door in the bottom right, and thus save an orange that we could actually spend on the orange blast door. Outside of that, we can identify that the purple blast door can be opened normally, while everything else has to be cursed. So, the most profitable starting open in terms of access is the pink blast door, since we'll also be able to reach the purple doors from there. We of course start with the 1 brown since everything else is excessive, and then after opening the blast you can take the 5 to clear the purple 4 and the white blast, so we'll have access to it for the final one. And then after clearing all that, you can take your 9 and 8 keys, and so as we figured out earlier, then it's a pretty straightforward shot from there to the exit. This level is a very obvious tutorial in teaching you that yes, you can even curse the golden doors as well. Looking to the end, we'll obviously have to curse the 24 door at the end, but the blank door is unknown for now. Our first path should absolutely be to maximize our masters, since there's plenty of doors of various counts, so we'll easily be able to get down to 0 if necessary, which, I mean, granted that isn't really like solid logic technically, but let's just be realistic here. This can be done via bottom and top route in that order, which leaves us with 5 masters and some brown. That we will have to take now, as otherwise we just couldn't reach the end. Looking ahead again, the bottom route before the end is clearly the better choice numerically, and of the 3 choices before that, again, the bottom path is the cheapest potential route by maximizing our browns and using the masters. By only spending browns on the smallest locks on those, we'll need at least 8 brown and 4 masters, since we'll need at least 1 extra of each for the 24 door, which, as it just so happens, is obtainable by mastering the 3 door and opening the 2 door with your browns normally. Then, once you've followed that route fully, you'll have just the 1 brown, which you can spend way back at the start, allowing you to leave. This is probably the tastiest looking level in the entire game, but first things first, we need 0 of something and to get access to the 25 pink, since the 12 would be unopenable with brown. And since we need the 25, we'll effectively be setting ourselves to 8 pink and brown. However, before you take the brown, you may notice that the 25 pink sets you to an odd count, which would mean it's impossible to get to 0 pink by the end, which, of course, is necessary, since you can only even hypothetically get past 2 of the 3 blank pinks with brown, just disregarding the key and door counts. So, you should open the 3 pink before taking them, so that way when you pick up the 25, you'll actually be setting yourself back to an even count. And since you'll need to be getting down to 0 brown regardless, as to not coast the 12, you might as well make the pink blank door brown and head through after spinning your browns. The only way to get rid of our 18 pinks that we now have is via the 6s and the 4+2. Thus, we'll need to grab the brown, which was already mandatory given really having no other choices here. Then you can coast the blank door leading towards the exit, and spin your remaining browns, leading to a very clean exit. It's the other new mechanic, pure doors and keys, which the doors are unable to be mastered or coast. They are basically just a hard gate of saying, you need these keys to progress. The first half of this level is literally free, so I won't bother explaining that, but afterwards we'll need to get through quite a few doors, with the only normal keys accessible being the 6 cyan. Using your master on anything besides the cyan would make effectively 0 progress, so that would be a safe open first. Then you'll need brown to progress, and there's no real reason not to preserve your cyan, so you might as well just open the 2. Then you know you'll at least want to open the pink door, and afterwards you can see that if you open the cyan with the brown, you'd have to use a master on the blast door, which then wouldn't leave you enough to actually cross for the pure key, so simply spend the last brown you have on the blast door instead. And from there it's quite straightforward, so you can just take your leave. For this one you can of course immediately take the pure keys, but leave the rest until after we identify our route, as one of them does require a blank cyan, and we may have to go down that. Since the bottom 2 routes both have a blast door with keys afterwards, and there's 3 routes that have blast doors in general, you can safely open the top 2 routes and then figure out which one of the bottom 2 goes with it. Since the middle route has both a cyan and brown after the blast, but also a brown before that, this means you'll have to take the brown already by the time you get to the blast door, so you'll have to spend all your browns in some way or another, and so by the time you get to that final 2 brown door, you just can't actually open it. And thus, by process of elimination, the bottom route is the 3rd one that we'll have to take. Then you can just open the blank and take your cyans, as they're safe to hold now. We can then see 16 first browns before the blank on the top right, meaning we could spend up to 3 more browns while still being able to use that blast door on the bottom right. And since there's no reason not to maximize our cyan count, we can spend exactly 3 by opening a blank brown on the left. We can do this just by, before we actually take the browns, clearing everything leading up to that, and then taking our browns and, well, doing it. This will leave us at exactly 6 cyan, which is just enough to clear the 3, the 2 1-locks, and the blast, letting us out of here. First observation, which is not really surprising, it's impossible to beat this level without the brown keys. The numbers just simply don't add up to get through everything. So, how do we get them? Well, you'd have to spend 4 masters to actually get across without anything new being into the equation, so obviously that will lead to issues, and we aren't doing that. However, you can spend the 2 white on a purple and cyan, making it so you'll only have to spend a couple masters total to get to the brown on top of the one that you spend for the white. This does lock out the purple door from being opened naturally, but now that we have brown, we can bring one of the master keys over, and when we pass the blast door, we'll be getting 2 whites, and once we're there, we'll either have one master and two browns, or two masters and no browns. And just taking a look at the level layout, what we have left, a single extra master key will not make any difference in progression, so we clearly do have to master the blaster. And moreover, spending our extra brown on anything will not make a difference, so. And finally, the only way to get through this last bit is by using the brown on both of the orange doors, and then the whites for the two cyan to leave. Definitely a very intimidating level, but not that bad once you break it down. There's no browns this level! Yay! So there is a lot going on here, obviously. Let's just start by looking at the left half of the level before that pure door up top. We'll need 5 green before we cross over, so we already know that we'll have to spend a master key right at the start to make the 8 green available. Additionally, we'll have to master the red blaster and 3 cyan door, meaning we will have to also grab the additional 2 master keys before the 3 pure door at some point. Because we can't get them yet, we use the 4 white to open the next door, and we might as well pick up the 8 green as well, because there's literally no reason not to. Then looking ahead a good bit, we can see that there's an exact 2 green, which is forced eventually, and because we have no reason really not to, we might as well spend our 2 green on this door now, rather than using a master key on it, since we'll just be going down to 2 later anyways, no matter what our count is. And then, because again, there's just no reason not to, we might as well take the 9 pure, open the 3 door, then take the exact 5. Afterwards, the question is how to spend the least amount of masters on the pink doors. We can see just by counting is that going for the 3 opens of 4 total keys is the route. So after that, we've got a bunch of opens that are based off stuff we already knew, which eventually leads to the 8 masters and 2 exact green. Once we do that, we can go grab the remaining 3 green keys since there's no reason not to pick them up right now. The next main goal for us is to find the route which minimizes master keys spent because, again, no reason not to minimize it. We can first notice that means to use the 5 whites on the 2, 1 and the other 2 white doors, meaning we have to master the 5 to move on, which thankfully we can save a master later by just not taking the white quite yet. We can then also spend a few more of our masters that are just forced, which leaves us with 3 masters at the end of all of that. Since all pures are forced, we will need to save 2 master keys for the golden door, and thus there's only 1 more that we'll actually be able to spend. And we know that's forced at the 2 green door below, so we've got to take the white now. Then after spinning the white, we can clean and open the eroded door and spin the remainder of our 3 greens up top, and of course grab the pure key from there. Then we just hit the blast to open the remaining green blanks, and from there it's a very free solve, which it kinda arguably was a little bit earlier, but regardless, finally, we can take our leave from the haunted attic. Real quick while editing, I realized that there was in fact an update time on Lockpick, and one of the levels in World 5 was actually replaced with a different one. So what you've seen is the current version, most modern, but I already recorded and explained the old version, and I felt like why not include that too, just for fun. So here you go, that's coming right up. So for this, we'll need to get all the keys for the doors at the end, since we can't get the brown over there, nor the master. Not that the only one would matter, really. However, you may notice the 2 pink is behind a blank cyan, which requires cyan before that. And then considering the only way to get rid of our 8 brown is via the 4 white 2 doors, we already know the master will have to be used on the 6 door. So somehow we'll have to open that blank normally. I'll give you a second to think about it. And the way that we solve it is by using the brown on it before we spin them all. That can kind of be figured out by process of elimination, really, but you coast the blank door, spin your browns, then you can go open the blank door and spin your cyans, and of course take the keys. Then you can grab your purple and leave. At least so far, this was easily the hardest world, in my opinion, in this section. It's not even really close. Brown keys are a very interesting mechanic, in my opinion. I think they work pretty well for what it aims to do, which, as far as I can tell, is mostly just overloading the brain in terms of just possible ways that you could progress through a level, like what you could open next. They kind of just show you cannot just freehand this level. You need to actually think about what you have to do to solve it. Because if you don't, you're just going to open some stuff and then realize, oh, I can't win. Okay, great. Which, you know, technically you can do that at any level, but it really, it really hammers that nail in. Which, this is good overall, but it is also hard in a lot of cases, honestly. It definitely adds some unique challenge in ways that other mechanics don't. I do overall like them, though. I think they mostly are just useful. I like how they add to the challenge of a level, and I do like that they kind of say, no, solve it correctly. As for Pyrodos and keys, I guess, they're a very simple mechanic, honestly, and I obviously don't mind them. I like that they restrict you, as kind of I said for World 4, mechanics that just say you have to do this here. I like. Maybe it's just because it makes it a little bit easier in some sense, you know, I don't have to factor that into the formula of what I need to think about going for or not. Like, is it even an option? No, you have to go for these pure keys, you know. But yeah, I think that's enough rambling. I don't really think I have too much more to say about this world. That last level was by far the hardest, though. I kind of always forget that it is that hard when I replay this game. But anyways, thank you for watching. You know what to do if you liked it, and I will see you next time.